Materialists. Seems like it has a great formula for a rom-com, right? Few handsome men, a beautiful, strong female lead with a good head on her shoulders, and directed by celinesong? It seems like it'd be hard for this movie not to be set up for success, right? And yet, it's one of the most disappointing movies of 2025, and here's why. When this movie was marketed, they touted it as the return of the 2000s rom-com. This movie sought to draw in those who missed the days of the silly but lovable romantic comedy. Movies like How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, 27 Dresses, Notting Hill, and 500 Days of Summer. The era where there was a plethora of movies where the average comedian was bagging the most gorgeous woman alive. When Julia Roberts and Sandra Bullock ruled our screens and sleepovers. We know that creating a successful rom-com that has a more serious tone and explores important topics while still highlighting the romantic relationship is doable. Many modern rom-coms have done it, the most notable being Crazy Rich Asians. Crazy Rich Asians did it all, while also featuring an all-Asian cast, something that was very unconventional to Western audiences at the time. But Materialists failed on both levels. It's unable to create serious tones and maintain that level of complexity throughout the movie, and it fails to display any connection between the characters. A rom-com with no chemistry is doomed because the whole point of it is the relationship, and sadly, that's exactly what occurred in this movie. I'm very curious if there was any chemistry leads between the actors, because if there was, none of that is showing up on screen. Despite the chemistry not being all the way there, the casting I do think was great. Chris Evans was perfect for the scruffy, down-to-earth younger man who can't catch a break in his career, and Pedro Pascal was fine in his role as a rich man working in the financial sector, but Dakota really did look the part of a confident, strong woman working a successful job. She looked great as a career woman in this movie. But despite that, I watched Materialists not caring who she ended up with because there was just no connection between any of them. Usually when romance films feature love triangles, they'll turn the romance down between the guy she's not supposed to be with and turn up the romance for the one she's supposed to be with because they want the audience to agree with the main character's choice. And in order for that to happen, they want her to have more chemistry with the right choice. So it's understandable that Dakota Johnson's character, Lucy, has less chemistry with Pedro's character, Harry, because it's intentional. He's meant to be the guy who's perfect on the outside but colder and harder to make a connection with, and Chris Evans' character, John, is the one who's supposed to be down to earth and not having it all together on the outside, but teaching the main female character to prioritize love and warmth in her life. But John and Lucy's relationship does not feel warm and inviting, does not feel carefree and fun. Instead, it feels stressful and a bit sad. They certainly tried to prompt the audience to feel some chemistry between Lucy and John with the music choices, which were great, I have to say, but there just wasn't enough to work with on screen, so the music just did not help much. There's a lot of conversations that Lucy and John have that are not the best, but there's a particular one that's a bit confusing. They are standing outside a wedding and Lucy has just kissed John after breaking up with Harry. John asks her up front what the relationship will be, and Lucy says she's not sure what will happen. She expresses that she's hesitant to enter into a relationship with him again. She says something about how if they get married, she'll spend a lifetime sitting across from him in crappy diners and living in his crappy apartment, and that is simply not true. She's making money at her job, $80K a year apparently, they say it in the movie, which makes zero sense given her apartment and her clothes, but okay, fine, we'll believe that. This is New York, by the way. They're living in New York. But sure, let's say it's actually $80K. If that's true, then she doesn't have to depend on John. She 100% does not have to give up anything from her current lifestyle. He can move into her apartment, or they can find another one, and they can go to normal restaurants because she has a stable job. So her reasonings during their argument do not make any sense. And if in her mind nothing has changed from the first time they were together, why does she agree to be with John later in the movie? The movie doesn't really indicate why she changes her mind about John after all this time. It's just odd because John was in the exact same place he was in at the start of the movie than he was at the end, so her decision to be with him later on doesn't make much sense. But I digress, let's move on. Okay, so if the romance has no chemistry, maybe it could still fall back on its strong plot, right? Well, sadly, this movie does not have a strong plot to fall back on, so it's unable to save itself with a powerful narrative. Boiling it down very simply, this movie discusses the dating scene, the marriage market, and how modern dating has become almost like an equation. These days, we weigh the costs and benefits of being with someone, their value, and we treat them as a number instead of a person. People are appraised like products, and their assets are analyzed, and if deemed a profitable relationship, then they decide to join together, either dating or marriage. At the start of the movie, Lucy's character is the shepherd of this marriage market. She brings clients together based on their assets, such as height, weight, salary, job, etc. If they tick enough of each other's boxes, we bring them together and kind of foster connection between them. Now, that is pretty interesting. It's a solid theme, and Lucy's character as a matchmaker is in the perfect position to explore this topic. But during the movie, they suddenly introduce a sexual assault plot, barely delve into it, and it weakens the movie as a result. To explain, during the second act of the film, Lucy discovers that her client Sophie was assaulted during a date by their other client, Mark, at a meeting that Lucy facilitated. This was a great opportunity to shift the tone of the movie because it seems like that's what celinesong intended to do, and kind of discuss more about the consequences of reducing people to statistics. They could have focused on the assault court case, how dating is not just fun and games, it can be very dangerous, and how you can't know who a person really is on the inside based on the amount of boxes that they tick. But instead, it's just brushed aside. We get some discussion of some interesting themes such as how much a person is worth and the dangers of treating people like items when Sophie confronts Lucy for setting her up with the man who assaulted her, but it's not substantial enough to become a fleshed out plot point. They brush on Sophie's storyline again when Lucy races back to Sophie's apartment to protect her from Mark after he angrily shows up outside her apartment, but it all fades into the background in favor of furthering John and Lucy's love story. Lucy confesses that she loves John on the steps of Sophie's apartment, just hours after Mark comes to harass Sophie. A very odd choice that felt out of place and almost disrespectful to the very serious topic of sexual assault. It felt like the director wanted to explore the dangers of dating, but instead of exploring it thoroughly, it's just thrown in there without enough thought or weight to it. There's one particular scene in the movie that could have elevated the movie from average to great if the rest of the movie had kept the same depth. In this scene, Lucy and Harry are on a dinner date, and Lucy begins to question why someone like him would want to be with someone like her. He talks about all her unfavorable qualities. She has debt, she makes $80,000 a year before taxes, she grew up poor, and she insists he could do much better than her. She has seen people as items to be matched together for so long. This shirt looks better with this pants. This belt looks best with this top, right? That she can't fathom why he would ever be with her when he could get someone much better. The matchmaking industry has told her that marriage is a business deal. Someone has more worth, someone has less worth. And she starts to genuinely see herself as less than and devalues herself in front of this man who seems to have it all. Harry goes on to tell her that he's looking for someone who can make him a better person, a person that knows more than him, who knows how the world works, someone who can be a life partner. For him, the superficial things that Lucy bases her entire life on have much less meaning. He declares that intangible assets don't degrade, they only get sharper, and the money, education, and job status that she values so much pales in comparison to her intelligence, wit, and personality. This is such a great scene because it's furthering the theme of the story while giving it the juice and oomph that the story was lacking. And it's a great point in the movie before the second act, and it gives the audience something to chew on as the rest of the movie continues. So that was a great scene. The problem is they continue to beat a dead horse with the theme of that conversation. What I mean is, after this scene, Lucy's character is constantly likening relationships to math equations, telling her clients that the person she's matched them with checks a lot of their boxes and talking about how much money people make, their outward appearance, their job, and ultimately how much they are worth on the marriage market. By the start of the third act, Chase probably likened relationships to math about 3 times, and it's starting to get stale. We understand. This movie is not subtle with its message. I mean, the title of the movie is Materialists, for heaven's sake, and by this time, the audience already understands what the director is trying to convey. We don't need to keep force feeding it to us with the exact same verbiage in the exact same way again and again. And on top of everything we've discussed, this movie has one major failure that will likely prevent it from becoming a well-liked film. Materialists is a romantic drama, touting itself as a rom-com. How are you going to call yourself a rom-com when the romance is not the central point of the movie? This movie is an analysis of relationships and modern dating. It is not a love story between a capable matchmaker and a poor but handsome aspiring actor. The story includes a romance, but that is not what it revolves around. So why market yourself as something you are not? Audiences are going into theaters thinking that they're going to see the next How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, and they are leaving theaters disappointed because this is not what was promised to them. A movie that has marketed itself as something it's not, fails to dig into its more serious concepts, and has no romantic chemistry between the leads, has no place in 2025. So, how did you feel about Materialists? Did you feel sparks flying between Lucy and John? Did it meet your expectations as a rom-com, or did it fall flat? I, for one, was very surprised that celinesong, a woman who directed Past Lives, which is a movie that has both depth of concept and great chemistry between the leads, also directed this movie. But of course, every director has their ups and downs, so I guess I can't be too surprised. Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more in-depth discussions on your favorite TV shows and movies. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.